real estate appraiser. She specializes, or did, I don't know if you still do, in eminent domain valuation. Do you still go out? Is still your job? And you've had a 28-year career as an expert witness on land use. This career culminated in exposing the impacts of sustainable development on private property and individual liberty. Rosa and her partner Kay Tokrud were instrumental in delaying a Santa Rosa redevelopment project that would have had an impact on 10,000 people who lived and worked in the projects, the area that they were going to take care of or redevelop. So tonight we're very pleased to have you here and welcome you, and I'm going to give you, will you have your own microphone now so you can take off.
Hope it's working.
And let me give you this if you want to use that.
Oh, good. Now, is this...
Can everybody welcome Rosa? It's getting feedback now.
All right, let's try that.
Okay, that sounds good.
Is that pretty good? Can everybody hear me really well?
I can hear you.
Well, you should listen. I mean, come on.
I'm listening.
You listen carefully. That's good. So that was a good question about the occupiers. I thought that was a great question. You know, the thing that we are having a problem with, obviously, in our country is that we've been divided. And we've been divided artificially. And this is part of the reason to divide us, because if we do get together, we're going to kick these guys out. And we're going to become aware very quickly of what's going on. So I want to introduce myself. I have been speaking across the United States to tea parties, to 912 groups, and to property rights groups. And, you know, I've been speaking to the people who are the stewards of their land and their water. The property owners. The people who have their rights and are recognizing that they're losing their rights. Our rights. I am a liberal Democrat. I'm pro-choice. I am anti-war. I'm a feminist. I'm pro-gay marriage. And the thing that gets them to throw tomatoes at me when I'm traveling is I'm a native Californian. So I am a commercial real estate appraiser, and my specialty is eminent domain valuation. I've been a litigation support person, expert witness for many years. I'm just finishing up a 28-year career. And so I'm an expert in land use and property value. And because of that, I became aware that there was a planning revolution going on. And it seemed like nobody else was talking about it or noticing it. And that planning revolution is the way that we see Agenda 21. It's what it looks like to us. But I didn't know that. I was out there in 9 counties of the San Francisco Bay Area, and I was looking at property value, and I was trying to determine what people could do with their land, because that's what an appraiser does. You figure out what the highest and best use is, what somebody can use their property for, and then you calculate what it's worth, right? So I was going to planning departments all over the 9 counties, and I was saying, well, what can people do with their property? And I was finding out that there just wasn't a whole lot that they could do with their property. That in fact, the planning departments looked like they were there as the gatekeepers to stop people from using their property. And I was thrown out of plenty of planning departments. And proud of it too. I stood there and fought with planners regularly. And there were a few planners who said, you know, I try to help people get around these regulations, these statutes, these ordinances, these rules that restrict them from using their property. And I said, is that what you do for a living? You try and help people get around the rules. So anyway, I'm a researcher, and if I have to prepare for a court case, I need to be able to support the facts, and that's what I do. I'm a researcher, and everything that I'm going to talk to you about is the truth. It's a fact, and it's supportable, and I have full documentation in my book and on my websites, and it's not a mystery. You can go to UN.org and look at Agenda 21. It's, the thing is, I may be a liberal, but this is not a liberal, conservative, right, left issue. It's an American issue. This is an issue that all of us need to get on board with immediately, because we're in the end game on Agenda 21. It is the biggest public relations scam in the history of the world. And I know that sounds like some kind of, big Hollywood hype thing or something, but it's not. It's really the truth. This is the agenda for the 21st century. That's why it's called Agenda 21. It's not Area 51, it's not Catch 22. It's called by the United Nations the Agenda for the 21st Century, Agenda 21, Sustainable Development. It justifies and enables the breakdown of our economy, the redesign of our cities and our towns, our loss of industry and agriculture and food independence, basically our loss of sovereignty. It's social engineering. It's the glorification of the new poverty. And that's part of what you see with the Occupy movement, is that sense that everyone should have the same amount, that nobody should have too much, that no one actually earned $1 million, and that no one should be able to keep it, and that anyone who owns anything necessarily must have done something wrong to get it. That's the philosophy, that's sort of a base philosophy of Agenda 21. In fact, it's kind of not what is Agenda 21, it's what isn't. And you're going to have to look long and hard to find something that is not United Nations Agenda 21 now, because this has been in the works for a long time. And it doesn't come with flashing lights, and it doesn't come with labels on it. There are many, many names that it's known by. And even if you're on council, and even if you're in a county supervisor, you may not be aware that what you're doing is enforcing United Nations Agenda 21 with a box of laws and ordinances and statutes that come right out of the agenda for the 21st century. So the days of the conspiracy theory are over. The green mask is off, and behind it is Sustainable Development, United Nations Agenda 21. That's what it is. No matter how small the town is, no matter how remote you think you are, no matter how big your city or your town, United Nations Agenda 21, Sustainable Development, is having a powerful impact on you right now. Right now. So I'm here to help you identify it, recognize it, and label it for yourself. We're going to take it from the big picture right down to your living room, because if you can't identify it, if you can't recognize it, you're not going to be able to fight it. And awareness is the first step in the resistance. So I'm going to start with the overarching political philosophy that supports the whole concept of it, and that is communitarianism. Communitarianism says that the rights of the individual come below the rights of the community. Now, we're Americans, and we have our Constitution, which guarantees us our unalienable rights, right? Our rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which is, you leave me alone, and I'll leave you alone, and we'll be fine. And everyone is going to be, as long as I don't get in your way and you don't get in my way and nobody hurts anybody else, we have our individual rights, right? Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. Now, those are unalienable rights. They can't be taken away from us, and they can't be granted to us by a government, right? We were born with those rights. But communitarianism says that they have to be balanced with the rights of the community. Now, the rights of the community, what is that? We don't know what the rights of the community are. The rights of the community are given by a government and taken away by a government. They change. They can change at any time. They're not written. They may not be written. They are sort of known rights and can come up and disappear at any moment. The rights of the individual are subsumed into the rights of the community. This is, in this case, the global community. Now, a good visual for thinking about the way this works is you take a clear glass of water, and that's your constitutional republic. And then you take another glass full of milk, that is your communitarian state. Communitarian state might be communist China. It's all for the common good. It might be Russia, communist Russia, or Nazis, all for the fatherland. Okay, so that's a communitarian state. Now you've got your constitutional republic, as we have here, and your communitarian state, and you want to balance them. So you take a clear pitcher, put it down here, and you're going to balance these two together. You're going to pour them together, the milk and the water. What do you have?
Milk.
You got milk. That's right. You got milk. You have lost your individual rights. They've been subsumed into the rights of the community. They come below the rights of the community. When you're balancing the community's rights with the individual's rights, the individual always loses. The community is like a brick and the individual like a feather. You always have more weight to the community. Okay, so this is what happens. You, when you're balancing them, you come up with your third way. You've got a problem, you've got a solution, and then you mix them together, and you get a third way. You get an agreement here that you never would have agreed to if this problem that suddenly came up didn't get posed. So you're going to see this again and again in your community, in your town, as an issue that comes up in the Bay Area. You're going to see this as you'll see a problem that is posed to you, and then the solution. And this happens regularly, and I'll show you how it works. So I'm going to use kind of a journalistic framework, which is who, what, why, where, how, when, and something else probably. And we're going to start with why, though. Why is climate change. Oh, no, it's not climate change, it's global warming. No, it's not global warming, it's climate change. Climate change, global warming, yeah, it's really serious. We are in deep trouble now. Oh, our lives are about to end. We're destroying the planet, and it's our fault. It's your fault, because you use too much. You drive too much. You eat too much. You're lazy. Hey, this is serious. We're talking about chaos. We're talking about life is being threatened. All the lives of the little animals on the planet. We're talking about our oceans. We're talking about loss of biodiversity, ocean acidification, the total destruction of the planet. The seas are rising. It's really serious. It's happening now. It's our fault. What are we going to do about it? Feel that panic?
Hey.
Got that panic going? Okay, you got the UN to the rescue. We're going to save the planet. Okay? Now, in 1987, the United Nations had the World Commission on the Environment and Development. This is called the Brundtland Commission. This came before the 1992 Rio Earth Summit. Okay, so this is our common future is what they came up with. And that's where, you've heard this term sustainable development, right? Heard this term sustainable development. Now you got sustainable, I just was in a hotel room, I had sustainable development coffee, U-Ban coffee. I mean, everything's sustainable development now. But this is where the term came from the United Nations, from the Brundtland Commission in 1987. And what is it? It's identified as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. Okay? All that remained then was to determine that, yes, what we're doing now is compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. And then decide what to do about it. So that's what happened. That Brundtland Commission was told to come back in 5 years with the answer, with the action plan for what was going to happen to change the world so that we would no longer be compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. Okay? That was 5 years later, in 1992, Rio de Janeiro Earth Summit. Okay? That's Agenda 21, the agenda for the 21st century. That's where that came up. That's the action plan for how to solve this problem, that we are a threat to the planet and we're destroying the future generations' opportunity to meet their own needs. It's a 300-page document. It's about 40 chapters, and every aspect of your life is covered by that document. And it is not a conspiracy theory, it's not some fantasy, it's the real deal. And it's signed on to in 1992 by George H.W. Bush. And I'll tell you though, the chair of the United Nations Security Council at the time was Maurice Strong. You might have heard of him. He got in trouble a little bit later with the oil for food scandal, and now lives in China. But and very comfortably. I'm sure he's got more than $1 million too. He said at the time, in 1992, he said the middle-class lifestyle is unsustainable. Single-family residences, private vehicles, meat eating, air conditioning, appliances. Yeah, those are all a threat to the planet. You like to golf? Forget about it. Livestock, you know, they eat and something comes out the back, that's methane producing. Livestock are a threat to the planet. This is middle-class lifestyle is a threat to the planet. The American lifestyle is a threat to the planet. It is unsustainable, according to the United Nations Agenda 21 document. Now, this was, you know, I'm telling you, this covers all aspects of your life. And this isn't just some, this isn't just some, you know, little conversation we're having here. This is the most serious thing that has happened in our lives. Because this is changing our lives. Every aspect of our lives is changing now. And this is why our economy has collapsed. This is all by intent. Everything that is happening now is happening on plan. This is why we're
got cap and trade.
Yes, that's right, and that's part of it. Okay, so I want to tell you about the 3 E's, which these are the cornerstones of the United Nations Agenda 21. You don't have to take notes because you're going to be buying this fabulous book tonight. Okay, so all right. So the 3 E's are economy, ecology, and what? Economy, ecology, and equity. Equity, social equity. Social equity. Nobody has too much, comrade. Okay, so you got, did I say that? Excuse me, I didn't mean that. Okay, so you probably can't see this, but I'm going to tell you what it is. It's an illustration in my book of the 3 circles. This is the symbol of United Nations Agenda 21, Sustainable Development. It's like a little piece of the Olympics sign. Or if you're mathematical, it's a Venn diagram. It's 3 circles that are, you know, kind of connect, and where they connect in the center is where it's sustainable development. It's where everything's in balance. Everything's in balance is a jargon word, okay? It's part of the jargon for Agenda 21. So when everything's in balance, economics, housing, transportation, land use, health, water, energy, food production, and population control. It's all part of Agenda 21. Now, there's a philosophical basis to this. It's called the precautionary principle. It's number 15 of Agenda 21. And this is very important because when you think about global warming, climate change, it's informed by the precautionary principle. Okay, this is what it is. It's if an action or a policy has a suspected risk of causing harm to people or the environment in the absence of scientific consensus. In the absence of scientific consensus that the action or policy is harmful, the burden of proof that it is not harmful falls on the party taking the action. Delta smell? Okay, this is now, in the United States, it's the precautionary approach. And it's in the EU, the European Union, it's the precautionary principle, and it is making law. It is the principle upon which they base their law. In the United States, it is called the approach. It is not used to base law, but it is used to create policy. It is. You are guilty until proven innocent with a precautionary approach. You've got to prove a negative. Prove that whatever it is that you're doing is not harmful. And that is without the consensus of the scientific community. Without the consensus of the scientific community. Okay, so when you hear that, what that tells you is that it doesn't matter if you have 1 million scientists who say that this is not true. Right, where am I? That you know, global warming, climate change, whatever. Because you don't need consensus, okay? So in 1992, as I said, George H.W. Bush signed on to this for us. It's soft law. It did not have to be ratified by your Congress, and it was not. You never heard of it. In 1993, Clinton, November of 92, Clinton was elected, and in 93, he dutifully brought this back to the United States, and he created the President's Council on Sustainable Development. They're not joking around here. 179 nations signed this, and it was their task, these nations' task, to bring this back to their countries and instate it as law. Soft law and policy, administrative policy. And it is in the United States. The President's Council on Sustainable Development is made up of 12 cabinet-level secretaries, including education, energy, defense, I forget all the rest of them, transportation, a whole bunch of them. Besides them, you had captains of industry, like Dow Chemical. You had Ken Lay from Enron. All right, this is in 1993. You had the Sierra Club, the Natural Resources Defense Council. Okay, this is who, you weren't on there. You had no representatives there. That's who was representing you on the President's Council for Sustainable Development. Now, what they were all about was bringing United Nations Agenda 21 into the United States. And they said, okay, the cabinet level guys, they said, all right, we can do this. Agriculture was one. They said, we can do this administratively. We don't need to involve the public. We think we're going to be able to just put this, shove this under the door. No one's going to notice. But we want to make sure that we change land use policy. We want to have an impact in every single community in the United States. We want to do it fast. We need to get this out to every community in the U.S. How are we going to do it? What they did was they gave a multi-million-dollar grant to the American Planning Association. They said, hey, we need you guys to write us up something that we can get into every single university and every planning department in the entire United States. It took them about 6 years, and then a couple of years after that, they got it into every community. It's called Growing Smart, Legislative Guidebook with Model Statutes for Planning and the Management of Change. The management of change. Now, I just want to say a little something about that. Growing Smart, a legislative guidebook with model statutes. Model statutes. Now, when you're a person who's a council person or a supervisor, county supervisor, and you think your planning department is coming up with those statutes, those ordinances on their own, they're not. They're getting them out of a book, and it's called Growing Smart, a legislative guidebook with model statutes. Okay, so that Growing Smart is smart growth. Sound familiar? Smart growth. Growing Smart. That's where it came from. They got it into every university and every planning department by 2002, and that was when I started to see that planning revolution going on. Because it was the same thing in every community in the entire 9 Bay Area counties. Every single one. Now I've been across the country. It's everywhere. It's not just here. It's not just in your town. It's everywhere. Everywhere. All of these towns and cities are looking the same. Smart growth. What is smart growth? Ground floor retail comes up about 12 feet, built to the edge of the sidewalk, 2 stories of residential above or more. Alley around the back for your 1-car parking. Transit-oriented development is on a transportation corridor, or it's close to a BART station, or a future planned train station that does not exist and may never exist. You've got high density. You may have 20 units per acre, you may have 30, you may have 50, you may have 70 units per acre. What does that look like? 4 stories, a solid block of building built right to the edge of the sidewalk. Ground floor retail, often vacant, often bankrupt. Few 4 stories of residential above, often empty. Built as condos. Oh, you're gonna love this. They've all got their granite counters. Yeah, they're empty now though. They got paid for with your property tax dollars, a lot of them. And I'm gonna tell you about that. But we were talking about Growing Smart, the legislative guidebook that is now in every single city in the entire United States, and it's from the President's Council on Sustainable Development, gave that grant to the American Planning Association. That's a private organization, by the way, nonprofit, private, okay? What happens then? Well, you see all your planning changes. All your planning changes. If you want to be a transportation planner or a city planner, you're going to study that book. You walk into any planning department in the entire country, and that book's on the shelf, or off the shelf and on someone's desk. They're using it. Okay? So, they said, all right, we can get it in, we can get Agenda 21 into every single city in the entire United States. Real easy now. We're in. But you know what? The people might not like it. They might wake up and not really appreciate that their entire lives are changing, that they can't use their property for what they thought they could use it for. So what are we going to do? We're going to commission another book, and that's called Sustainable Development. No, it's called Sustainable America, A New Consensus. Now, if you're like me, I told you I was a feminist, and I'm a lesbian feminist. That's twice as bad. So I'll tell you what happens when you're as old as I am, you come out of that tradition where it's just, a whole bunch of women with super long hair and old jeans, and you got some idea you're going to do something. And you're in a room, let's say you got 12 women in the room, and you stay in there all night, 10 hours, you're fighting it out about some issue that you want to do, some action you want to make, and until every single person in the room finally can agree on an action. That is consensus, agreement of all parties, right? That's what consensus is if you look in your dictionary. But Sustainable America, A New Consensus by the President's Council on Sustainable Development, that gives you a whole new definition of consensus, a new consensus. What is it? Neutralization of the opposition. Neutralizing your enemies. That is the new consensus, the Delphi technique. Delphi, what is that? It's a Rand Corporation mind control technique that is being used on you when you go to a city meeting, to a county meeting, to a neighborhood association meeting. It is designed to bring a group of people to a predetermined outcome while they are thinking that it is all their idea. That's what the new consensus is. It's a manipulation, a clever manipulation of a group of people, in this case, the entire nation. Delphi can work on one person all the way to the whole world, and it is. And this is what they do. They bring you into a room, come on down, we're going to do a visioning meeting. We're going to have a stakeholders meeting. We're going to have, it's a charrette. We're going to have a workshop. We're going to invite you. We want to know what you think. Meanwhile, we got it all planned out already. Nothing's going to change. Your comments, your ideas are going to go into the round file when you leave the room. But we got you in the room. We got consensus. We've got all these people who agreed with us, even if you didn't. I've got it in my report. You came in. Who are all these consultants? You know, if you are on a board or a commission, what are your government employees doing if you're hiring consultants? Why are you paying consultants to Delphi you? Anyway, for people who think that I'm making this up, you can't see this, so I'll tell you what it is. Rescue Mission, Planet Earth, a children's edition of Agenda 21. Yes, it's by Boutros Ghali of the United Nations and the children of the world. I hope they're getting their royalties here. Okay, so this is yes, it's a children's edition of Agenda 21, and I finally looked at it. I've been dragging this thing around, and here's this little workbook in the back. It says, turning Agenda 21 into action is a big challenge for us all. Thousands of people at the United Nations and in governments are working on it. This booklet will show parents and educators how children can be part of the work. Yes, Delphine your kids is a very active part. That's not an education they're getting trained like dogs. It's called outcome-based education. Outcome-based education. Training. They're being trained to be good citizens. What is a good citizen? Good citizen in that definition is a good German. That means somebody who goes along to get along. Somebody who doesn't cause problems. Somebody who doesn't ask the wrong questions. Somebody who doesn't want to stand out. Somebody who, why? Because communitarianism is imposed on you through peer pressure. When you go to those visioning meetings, and you're in a room full of people, and somebody like me, not like me, nothing like me, is standing up there and telling you how your life is going to be so groovy if you pick planned future instead of business as usual, which is where you live right now. And you say, excuse me, but I don't like that too well. And they go, oh, really? And everyone looks at you. And you raise your hand or you want to speak up. And pretty soon, you'll get attacked. You're going to get maligned. You'll get shamed. You'll be embarrassed. You'll be targeted. This is the method that's used in the RAND Corporation Delphi technique. They target you. They shame you. They embarrass you if you speak out. So, you got to be brave. Okay, so how do they do it? How are they doing this? They want to reduce their greenhouse gases, your greenhouse gases. They probably drove to wherever it was and live in a house, but you live in sprawl. Yeah, if you live on more than 6,000 square feet in a single family home, you are living in sprawl and you are so bad. That's not sustainable. That's not going to work. And you know why? Because they figure in the urban areas mainly, this is a plan to get you out of the rural areas where we're sitting right now. In case you don't know it, it's sprawl. Okay? Rural and suburban areas are a threat to the planet because, for the most part, this is the green mask of it. Well, there's not enough public transportation out here, so you have to drive your car. And your house is too big, and you use too much energy. So we're going to get you into that smart growth, that ground floor retail that's empty now because it can't support retail because there's not enough people living in that area. So you're going to pack those units with as many people as possible. You're going to get the people out of the rural and suburban areas where they can be near a train line or a bus line, even if it doesn't exist now, and it just exists on paper. They're going to bring you in there and make that so that they can now say that they've reduced their greenhouse gas emissions, okay? That's the plan. Now, the route that they're taking to get there is that they use an international group that is a non-governmental organization. It's called ICLEI. ICLEI stands for International Council of Local Environmental Initiatives. ICLEI. Except they don't call it ICLEI anymore because you are getting hip to them. Now they call it ICLEI, I-C-L-E-I, which stands for absolutely nothing, it's just the letters. Local governments for sustainability. Local governments for sustainability. And what is that? Well, that is a group made up of elected officials, but it is a private group. So you know about the Brown Act. If your council or your supervisors or some board is going to have a meeting, the public has to know about it and has to be given the opportunity to be there. Now they may stick that notice up in the basement on a Friday for a Monday morning meeting, but they still have to do that. But ICLEI doesn't, because even though it is made up of elected officials, but they do not have to notify you, and they don't, and you will not be at their meetings. In fact, you didn't even know, or may not know, if you are a member, if your community, your city is a member. They say they represent 600 million people worldwide. They're in 70 countries, including the US, 138 cities and counties in California. And I'm going to tell you, Solano County is a member. You got Davis. I know my counties and I know my cities. Okay, so don't be thinking I'm totally stupid. But I'm going to tell you I'm talking about the area around you and right here. Davis, Dixon, Fairfield, Tracy, Oakley, Pittsburgh, San Pablo, American Canyon, Antioch, Benicia, Concord, Solano County, Alameda County, Sacramento and Sacramento County, San Joaquin County, and Contra Costa County. And that's just a few. They are all members of this group. This international group calls itself Local Governments for Sustainability. What are they? They do policy. They create policy and legislation for your cities. Tell them I'm busy. I can't take it. Okay, now what do? They monitor your greenhouse gases. If I hadn't been so late, I would have had a flyer on every one of your chairs, and I'm going to make sure that you get them. And these flyers are for you to make copies of and give to people. $5, you can make 100 flyers. This movement that you're in is a grassroots movement, and it's an active movement. And you are part of it, and you will be active in this movement, because this is not something that you're just going to listen to me and then you're just going to go home. You know, this is not that kind of thing. You've got to get active and be part of it. So I just turned in my retirement papers. Yeah. At least you guys appreciate it. You know, I mean, I got to quit my job. I don't have time for it. This is way more important. But you're not convinced yet. I can see that, so I'm going to get to it. Okay? We're going to get you. By the end, you're going to be into it. Okay, so Obama, when he was running for office, he made a campaign promise. He said by 2050, the United States, we would reduce our greenhouse gas emissions 80% below 1990 levels. Okay, so let's think about that for a second. 80% below 1990 levels. Well, you know, I asked myself, what year would that be? When were we expelling 80% of 1990 levels of our greenhouse gas emissions? So I found a chart, and I went, okay, blah, blah, blah. 80% of 1990 levels. What year do you think that is?
1925.
Okay, it's 1934. Oh. That was a good year, wasn't it? But since there's a lot more people now than there were in 1934, it's going to be probably like 1880 or something like that, greenhouse gas emissions. That's the goal for 2050. I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter, because that is the green mask. That is the thing, that's the pressure, that's what's pushing you, that's what's pummeling you, that's what's pressuring you to move out of your home. Now, you don't feel pressured now. You don't feel pressured now, but I'm going to tell you what they're going to do. Now, Kyoto Treaty, The U.S. did not sign the Kyoto Treaty, but 1,054 United States mayors did. They said, we don't care if the U.S. didn't sign the Kyoto Treaty. We're going to go along with it, and we're going to instate it in our cities. That's a 7% below 1990 levels by 20-something or other. Who cares? Who knows? The whole point is to bring this legislation, bring these policy changes into your community, and it's being done through ICLEI, the International Council on Local Environmental Initiatives. Your community, your city pays dues, and then they get a whole box full of legislation, of ordinances, of policies. They start their milestones where they start measuring your greenhouse gas emissions, and then they know how much you're using, and then they start telling you that now you have to use less water. Well, we still have to charge you the same or more because we've got, hey, we've got our fixed costs. I know you've been conserving, but you can't expect us to run this department without all the money we've been used to. So we're going to jack your rates up and up and up and up. And this is water. This is going to be gas. You see your gasoline costs are going way up. Why? Because they want to make it so that it's more pressure on you to get out of the rural and suburban areas and into the cities, where you can be surveilled and managed and controlled. And this is what the plan is. Okay, I looked at the Kyoto Treaty. I said, hey, I wonder what country has reduced their greenhouse gases the most. So I looked at that. I said, let's see, of all the countries of Europe, which country has reduced their greenhouse gases the most? Which one do you think?
No.
Oh, Egypt.
No.
Spain.
No. Latvia. Latvia. Yes, clinging desperately to the edge of the former Soviet Union is tiny Latvia, where they have no heat in the winter, no air conditioning in the summer, where they live in concrete boxes, and they're also known for something else, their human rights abuses. What does that tell us? If you control your people totally, you're going to be able to reduce your greenhouse gases a lot. That's going to be good. This is communitarianism. The end justifies the means. This is the philosophy. This is the philosophy that informs UN Agenda 21. The end justifies the means. They do this in secret. You didn't even know about ICLEI probably. If you just heard about it, or if you've heard about it recently, this has been operating for 20 years. A lot of communities, cities are members, and the citizens don't know, have no idea. Okay, I told you by 2002, Growing Smart, a legislative guidebook, was in every single city, every single town in the entire United States, all of your universities. AB 32 in California, Assembly Bill 32, and Senate Bill 375, that's AB 32 greenhouse gases. Senate Bill 375 is anti-sprawl. Put it all together and you get manipulated how they use metropolitan planning organizations. Now, this might seem like boring stuff. It is not. This is heavy stuff. The money that comes into your town, transportation dollars, okay? This city, Rio Vista, and this entire area is part of, what is it? I'll tell you. I don't want to bore you, but this is very interesting. No, it really is, because the Metropolitan Transportation Commission and ABAG, which is the Association of Bay Area Governments, they are a metropolitan planning organization. They've got a lot of money. We're talking about a huge amount of money. $200 billion in transportation dollars for the next 25 years. And if your city wants any of that money, they've got to get on board and go along with whatever MTC tells them they can do for building smart growth. It's about building smart growth, okay? Now, there's 18 metropolitan planning organizations in California, and they are putting the pressure on all of the cities that are part of their region, okay? And this is about, here's where we're going and where they're going. We're talking about regionalization, okay? EU, what is that? That's a lot of countries that have lost their sovereignty. We are in the process of creating that same situation here, and they are doing it with regionalization, and they're using money as a pressure. Okay, now you may be on council, you may be on the board of supervisors, you may also sit on the Regional Transportation Board or the Metropolitan Planning Organization. You may think that you have power, you do not. This is a total regional plan. It's a regional plan, and what it does is it restricts and limits the ability of cities and counties to have sovereignty, their own sovereignty. You've got transit-oriented development, you've got mixed-use, smart growth, or else. You don't get any money. Okay, they've got their plans all designed. Here's one Bay Area. One Bay Area coming your way. They tell you exactly what you can build and exactly where it can be built. Exactly where. And where it's going to be built is Fairfield, part of Sassoon City. And I'm not talking about all over. I'm talking about in a very restricted, small part that's along a transportation corridor. That's it. If these towns want money from the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, they have to build exactly what and where they're told to. This is it. We're talking about loss of sovereignty. Now, you've got a general plan in every one of your cities. You've got a general plan, right? They probably invited you to come on down and give your opinion of the new general plan. You probably did not go. Or maybe you went. Maybe you did go to one of those 15,000 meetings that they had. Yeah. Where they told you that what they were going to do was build smart growth in the center of the city. But you were going to like it because you were going to be riding your bike. I can see you're all a bunch of bike riders. You'll be riding your bike. The sky's going to be blue. Everything's going to be cool. You're going to be living in an apartment downtown. Hope you like that. Okay, your planning department creates that general plan out of that box of rules that they got in Growing Smart, a legislative guidebook. This is the Marin County General Plan. I got a copy of the front page of it. Very nice. It's, you know, Marin County, pretty county, very pretty. Right inside, can you see that?
Oh my gosh.
Right inside. Very common. LA County General Plan, Ventura County, all the plans, they all have it. They may not actually have the logo in there, but this is all from the United Nations Agenda 21 plan. All of it. Okay? This is the way that it's designed. One of the ways that they do it, I'll tell you what, it gets even worse. Because I'm talking about 18 metropolitan planning organizations in the state, but there are 11 mega regions in the United States. 11 mega regions. Now you were just, how could you be so dumb? You thought there was 50 states, didn't you? But you know what? There's mega regions now. 11 mega regions. Hey, the country I come from is city, county, state, and fed. That's our legal system. Okay, that is our that's the way our governmental system is designed, right? Okay, no. Now we've got regions. So does the EU. Those 11 mega regions include part of Mexico and part of Canada. You've got 11 mega regions in the United States. In Northern California is one of those 11 mega regions. It's 31 counties, 48,000 square miles, 15 million people, and it includes Reno, Nevada. Every one of these mega regions makes sure that it crosses the state boundary, and in some cases, a nation boundary, just to break that concept that we have of city, county, state, and fed. They always split the counties, they always break the states. This is designed to get us on board for regions, okay? Now, why do you care about that? Because you've got your sovereignty. Because if you want to vote somebody out of that council or that supervisor, that board of supervisors, you do it. You got a few years, you wait, and then you get somebody else in there. But you can't do that with regional boards. You maybe get one guy off, but the whole board goes on. These boards have 18 people on them. They have 180 people on them. They've got people representing every city, every community, every county, but those people themselves also have no power because the board at the region is what calls the shots, and a lot of it is transportation dollars that calls the shots. And that is directly related to Agenda 21, the agenda for the 21st century. High-speed rail. Yeah. Hey, I personally can't wait to go from Fresno to Bakersfield. I don't know about you, but I've been waiting for that. That's right. High-speed rail is a way to sink your economy even further, to suck your dollars. This is a building block for mega regions. High-speed rail, or the concept of high-speed rail. You will find in all of Agenda 21 that the reality of it is irrelevant. The concept is all that's necessary. If you have a train that is planned somewhere in your town, then they will change the planning in that area within a quarter mile of it, a quarter-mile circle, so that everyone in that area, all the property in that area, is now general planned, redesignated for high-density development. That means that when you go down to your planning department, you got a piece of land there and you want to put a little house on it, or you want to put a little 7-Eleven thing, some little strip center. Oh no, you can't do that now. Now it's got to be transit-oriented development, ground floor retail, 2 to 3 stories or more of. Where are you going to get the money for that? Oh, you don't have a track record? No bank is going to lend you any money on that. But luckily for you, you're in a redevelopment area. Redevelopment, the unknown government. Now you may think redevelopment is dead, but it isn't. And in fact, I know that you know that your city says that it paid a ransom. It paid the ransom. Oh, it paid the ransom to stay in the redevelopment game. It's right they called it ransom because it's a real pirate thing and they should be walking the plank. Because what that does is it takes your property tax dollars for 30 years and scrapes them off the top and puts them in the pocket of the redevelopment agency. And you think that's keeping money in your community? We want to keep our property tax dollars in our town. We don't want the state stealing our property tax dollars. No. That is completely wrong. The way that, they have brainwashed people. Because redevelopment is a scam. And it is a funding mechanism for United Nations Agenda 21. And what it does is it declares an entire area of your city blighted. And they've got consultants on board that can declare Beverly Hills blighted, and they have. They say, leaves on a tennis court is blight. Yeah, they'll declare your area blighted for a fee. And then from that period on, let's just say it's 1975. Let's just say it's 1982, okay? 1982, your area has been declared blighted. For the next 30 years, till 2012, any increase in property tax dollars in that area, any increase from, remember what you were paying in 1982? Property taxes? For the next 30 years, the increase, any money above that base amount goes into the pocket of the redevelopment agency, does not go to your general fund, doesn't go to keep your parks watered, doesn't go to pay for your roads, does not go to pay for your police and fire, does not go into your general fund, does not go into your educational system. It gets scraped off the top and given to it's either your city council or a separate board, unelected, the redevelopment agency, and then they determine what they're going to do with it. That does not go into your general fund. Bond brokers get that money. And they have 45 years to pay off those bonds. They indebt themselves. You are indebted for 45 years. And they never get rid of a redevelopment project area. Not a single one in California has ever closed out. They never seem to get rid of the blight. They take that money, all that tax money, for years. You think you got problems now? How do your parks look? You got street lights off? Where is the money? A lot of it is being taken and given to bond brokers to pay off that debt. You got to get this. It's on my website. Democrats against UN Agenda21.com. You can get it for free. It's just a download. It's a great little thing. It's got tons of charts, cartoons. It's about 40 pages long. It tells you everything you need to know about redevelopment, and you need to know about redevelopment because it's not dead yet. It should be, but it's not. Rio Vista, Fairfield, Sassoon City, Dixon, a bunch of them are paying back the money that they were stealing out of your educational system for all those years. Now they're going to backfill it finally to the state. The state said, fine, you give us a little money back for the educational system and we'll let you keep ripping off your citizens for the next 100 years if you feel like it. Am I pissed off? You know, I don't want you guys to think I'm pissed off. But I tell you, I work for a government agency, okay? I testify in property rights issues for a government agency. I appraise property for a government agency. Now, when I got elected to a project area committee, a citizens oversight group for a huge redevelopment project area, I figured I was going to be on the side of the government. I never thought I was going to sue to stop that huge project area. 5 miles, the thing is enormous. 1,100, it was 1,300 acres until they dropped my neighborhood out. They wanted to get rid of me, but I didn't go away. You know, they declared the area blighted, but they used fraudulent information. And then when I said, hey, did you guys notice that you got some fraudulent information in your books? That's when they tried to get rid of me. They accused me of a Brown Act violation. They said that I didn't do. They said that, oh, what did they do? God, you know what? I think this is, I mean, call me naive, but I had no idea how unscrupulous my government was until I found out up close and personal, until I got the shock of my life. Because I am a government employee, and I take that seriously. I work for the people of the state of California, and that includes whoever's property I'm appraising. And I am fair, and I treat everyone as I would want to be treated, and I thought my city was going to be like that too, but I was wrong. And you know what? When I finally said, hey, you know what, we got to do something about this project. This is fraudulent. We're not going to let this happen. And we started a business association. We hired a law firm because we thought we were going to be able to get it on the ballot. We thought, let's put this on the ballot. Let's get the people to vote. We couldn't get enough signatures, and the city published a fake ordinance in the newspaper. They published a fake ordinance in the newspaper. You're going to have, you've got your view sheds, your ridge lines, your biotic resources, your scenic easement, your street side threshold, your inland corridor, your rural corridor. You got restrictions on your land use. That all comes out of Growing Smart, a legislative guidebook with model statutes for planning and the management of change. That word change, jargon. Remember I told you this is the biggest public relations scam in the history of the world, and I'm not kidding around here. They have paid a lot of people a lot of money to design this plan, and it's been going for 20 years, and you are just becoming aware of it because we are in the end game now. We have got to get on board and work on this together now. Because if we don't do it, and you know, don't think I don't notice that just about everybody in here is my age and older. This movement that we are watching happen in front of us is a youth movement because these people have been indoctrinated since they were children and told that they are destroying the planet and told that they must work collectively, and they have been trained to do this. They are in a cohort. Now look, I told you I'm a liberal Democrat, and I'm not joking. I really am. But I don't leave my brain at the door. I'm aware and conscious of what's going on. Now I also understand that when you talk about the wildlands, and you talk about linkages through corridors so that animals can get from one place to the other, okay, that sounds cool, but if you look at these linkages, they take up whole states. We're talking about strips of the country, swaths of the country that are hundreds of miles wide. Now they don't own, these conservation groups do not own that land. They are taking it through regulatory takings. They're telling you that you want to get a conservation easement. There's actually, the University of Wyoming is sending out facilitators. Those are what you see when you're up in some meeting and there's somebody who's running the meeting and they always have an agenda and they're actually the ones who drive you to a certain, agreement, consensus that you had no idea that you agreed with until you walk out and you go, was I the only one who didn't like that? Those are the people they send out to knock on your door. Hi, I'm with the University of something through the state of Wyoming. I am here to help you, or the state of Montana, I'm here to help you do estate planning. I'm here to help you do estate planning. Now for those people who don't kick their ass out the door in about 10 seconds, excuse me, they come in and they meet with every single person in the family. And they get you all together then, after they've met with you and they've learned what your whole family dynamics are, and they get you to leave your property to them, to the city, to the state, to the county, to the feds, whatever, through a conservation easement, to a land bank, to a private group for conservation purposes. They'll pay you some money. They split your title. They do this under the auspices of the government. This is a way to take title away from the private citizen. This is a way to remove private property ownership from the citizens of the United States. This is what this is about, you guys. This is about loss of private property ownership. Never thought we'd see this, but we are seeing it. This is the loss. If you can't get water rights, what are you going to do? If they own the water, if they say to you, you can't use your well, we're going to monitor your well, that's the first step. Second step is you don't own that water. How about in Sonoma County, we've got 1,384 miles of rural roads, and the Board of Supervisors just said they're only going to be paving 150 miles of rural roads. 150 miles of rural roads will be paved, and the rest of those 1,200 miles will not be paved. Do you think your property's going to be worth anything, your rural property, when you can't get to it? How about you growing anything out there? You going to be able to get that to market? What's that going to do to private property ownership out there? You're going to be in the city. How are they getting you into the city? That's one way. Restriction on your use. Vehicle miles traveled taxes. Boy, when you're out here and you want to go wherever it is you work, and they're going to charge you for every mile you drive, on top of that $5 a gallon you're going to be paying. Oh, you got an electric vehicle, you think you're real cool. Well, you know what? Who's going to be paying the road taxes? Because those come out of the gas pump. They're going to be maintaining those roads for long? Nope. Roadless areas in the United States, right now it's 60 million acres. It's going to increase. That's the plan. Loss of agriculture, loss of food independence, and loss of a tax base. Because when that property is not owned privately, it's not paying property tax. And then you spiral down. Less money for the county, less money for the city, less money for the state, for the feds. Pretty soon you got no services. This is how it happens. This is exactly how it happens. So, you know, that's it. Your Delta vision. Public-private partnerships, right? That's what you're looking at with that, National Heritage Site thing you got going. You know, you worried, did you guys go to the meeting a couple weeks ago? It was here about the bass fishing, bag limits. They got you fighting with the farmers, don't they? It's not the bass, it's you guys. The bass don't eat the Delta smelt. It's the farmers in the water. Right, they got us at each other's throats instead of us pointing in the right direction. We are being manipulated. We are being manipulated. This is all United Nations Agenda 21, every bit of it. This is a lack of scientific support for these plans. No justification for changing these flows. You don't need it because you've got the precautionary approach. You don't need scientific consensus anymore. They are using the cover of environmentalism. And through the cover of environmentalism, the rigid control of a totalitarian state is in progress right now. That is what's behind the green mask. That is what is behind the green mask. This is an abuse of trust. Because you know what? Everybody who's been abused, and we all have, knows that it's not the rhetoric of the abuser. It's not what they say. It's what they do. It's what they do that matters. And we see exactly what has happened to us. We have lost our economy. It has been destroyed. Why? You know, those Occupy people, kids, whatever, yes, they're being led by the nose and manipulated. Of course they are. But they also know that there was not regulation on Wall Street as there should have been, and that was by design. Our economy was crashed. The banks were paid off. That is what TARP was. We lost. The banks didn't lose. The banks got to eat the little banks. The big banks got to eat the little banks. And we got foreclosed on. So what else is happening? You know, this is it. It's a totalitarian state in progress. And they all share the same thing. All totalitarian states share the same thing. We're talking about Red China, we're talking about Communist Russia, we're talking about the Nazis. They all share the same thing. We really don't think it can happen here. We just really don't think it can happen here. And it's not going to happen the same way. It's already happening here. It's happening here right now. But it looks different. But they all share the same thing. What is it? Total control. Total information. Total control. Okay, through the unions, through the educational system. It's corporatocracy. It's a corporate control. This is fascism, okay? Corporatocracy is fascism, where your corporations are running your government. Restricted movement, surveillance. You know, if an enemy wanted to destroy our country, they couldn't do much better. You're too fat. You eat too much. You shouldn't be driving. You better turn off your X, Y, and Z. You better restrict your energy usage. No more manufacturing because it's dirty. No more creation of wealth because it's not equitable. Are you plowing? Tillage. Tillage. Did you hear that dust is a pollutant? Yeah, you heard that. Right, okay, well, this is it. This is a totalitarian state. Rigid control of all systems, total information, surveillance. They got this thing now. Tiniest spy plane in the world. Tiniest spy plane in the world is DARPA, the Defense, what is it? Defense, I don't know, I forget. Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency from the Pentagon. Okay, this thing is, I've watched a little video of it. It's a tiny little, looks like a little tiny hummingbird. Flies 8 miles, you can see and hear everything, remote controlled, go all over, come right back, report. I was reading this article about it. It was in the New York Times, I think, and it said, I get down to the bottom, I'm reading about this thing, I'm thinking it's going to be for caves in Afghanistan, right? I get down to the bottom of this article, last paragraph, it says, it's not likely to be a hummingbird, says the guy who's developing it, because that's a rare bird in New York City.
Oh my God.
Domestic surveillance. Domestic surveillance is part of the totalitarian state, okay? All of these totalitarian states all share the same thing. Besides that, it's all for the common good. Yes, it's for the fatherland, remember? It's for the homeland. Can you believe we say that? It's for the homeland? It's for the fatherland. They also share the concept of the Spartan present. Pulling in, limiting, conserving. Come on, am I a pig? No. Do I think conservation is good? Yes. Do I think environmentalism is a good idea? Absolutely. Do I want to throw a bottle out the window of my car? No. And do I think all of that stuff is good? Yes, of course I do. I am not talking about that. I'm talking about using that as the cover for totalitarianism. And that is what you're seeing now. Okay? They all share that Spartan present and the glorious future. The vision of the glorious future. Oh, everything's going to be so fabulous. You're going to be riding your bike every day. Sky's going to be blue. The train. Yeah, the train's going to take you to Bakersfield. It's going to be great. Yeah. What else do they have in common? Terror.
Okay.
The war on terror is a war on you. And you know it. You know it. You've experienced it. You've been, had your shoes off in the airport lately. Every time I go through the airport, I forget my laptop. Running back and hoping that they haven't erased my hard drive. This is your life now. You are being trained to expect to be surveilled. You are being trained to expect to be under suspicion. You are trained to watch everyone else and notice what they're doing. Walmart's a partner in ICLEI. Walmart's an affiliate. Yeah, okay. Revolution is bad for business. They don't want you to wake up. They don't want you. They don't want you to do what you're going to be doing. They don't want you to be telling everybody else about this. They want you to think that you're a nut if you talk about this. But you know what? It's too late for that. That's all over. That is so yesterday. Because this is not a conspiracy theory. Do you believe me? Is this all true? Is United Nations Agenda 21 the real deal? Yes, it is. Absolutely. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is definitely a conspiracy fact. And you all should have brought your kids and your grandkids and whatever with you to hear me tonight. Because this information needs to get out to everybody. All people need to know this, especially all Americans. Because who's doing it to you? The National Association of Realtors. Okay? On common ground. This is all about smart growth. Who? The UN USA organization. You didn't even know there was a UN USA organization, but yes, and they're in almost every city in the United States. People who are former diplomats, people who work for the UN, who are in your neighborhood associations. You know those homeowners associations boards that run your life? That's communitarianism. Like that? How about it, huh? That's why did you forget why you live in a single family residence? That's why. That's part of why, isn't it? The bike coalitions, bicycle coalitions, are the shock troops for United Nations Agenda 21. Now, a lot of them don't know, or most of them don't know. But yes, they are, because they are the shock troops for redevelopment. Smart growth. Complete streets. Yeah, you paint a bike lane down a street, and now suddenly you got to demolish both sides of the street and build smart growth. Transit-oriented development. A lot of those transportation dollars are going for bike paths. I ride a bike. It's not my religion. That's who's doing it. Bike coalitions. Unions. The AFL-CIO said in 2000 at their convention that, what? They denounced sprawl. Denounced sprawl, and they encouraged, nay, they said that they would support smart growth. Why? Because most of their support, most of the union support, AFL-CIO, comes from urban areas. They don't care if the suburban and rural areas get emptied out into the cities. That just makes more members for them. 2001. Who else? I told you about Walmart, Lung Association, California Lung Association. You guys, you know, you look like a group of people who probably do a lot of volunteering. Who's getting your money and your time? Have you checked out those nonprofits? Who's on their boards? Google that with Smart Growth, with UN Agenda 21, with whatever. Check those people out. Where's your money going? You paying union dues? Do it under protest and tell them why. Are you paying your dues to the National Association of Realtors? You tell them you don't want to support smart growth. You don't want to finance this. Withdraw your support, your charitable contributions. Your churches, you got a pastor who's talking about sustainable development, you better go have a chat. Because the churches are part of this. Asset-based community development with mandatory volunteering. How's that? Mandatory volunteering, last time I used my brain, that sounded like slavery to me. Mandatory volunteering is coming your way. It's in my book. All this is in my book. And you know, I don't like it when people sell stuff. It annoys me. But that book I wrote because it's better than I am. It's better than listening to me. You can shut it off anytime. The information is great. It's all there. The support is there. The websites are there. The information is very well put together. It's short. And it's entertaining, I think, and so do most people who've read it. And the thing about it is that it's cheap. It cost me about what I'm selling it for, which is 15 bucks. And so I want you to buy it. So the other thing is that, you know, you're looking at people who are doing this to you. A lot of them don't know. I'm not telling you that every single person who's doing this is aware, because they're not. They're being used. There are a lot of people who know about this. And then there are a lot of people who are just paying their union dues, paying their bike coalition dues, don't have any idea that when they go down to the city council meeting and they beat the drum for smart growth or for that train, that they are being used to support United Nations Agenda 21. This is a plan to silence your voice and take away your rights, to take away your property rights, to take away your freedom. No, they don't, but we're darn close. And you really have to get on board and do it, because you know what? There are people who will not know what it means to be living in a free country. And we are older. And is this going to happen on our watch? We've had a good life. Is this going to happen to our kids and our grandkids because we didn't get up and say no? I don't think so. This is too important. This is the most important thing we're going to do. And look at, the thing is so secretive that they can still call you crazy even when you prove it. So there's no heroes. We are all heroes. Educate yourself on this. Get out to your neighbors. Get out to your people who you work with. Talk to everyone you know. Get this information out. Smart meters are part of Agenda 21. Smart meters are a way to regulate you, manipulate you, surveil you. They can shut them off remotely. If your car has OnStar, they can shut that off from Sacramento. Why are you giving up power to the government in that way? Don't do it. Research who runs these groups that you contribute money to. When someone runs for office, can see who they're connected to. Do not support them. I've got these flyers that I want you to take, make flyers and pass them out to people. This is it. Stop you on Agenda 21. We can do it. Let's do it. Government and taken away by a government. They change. They can change at any time. They're not written. They may not be written. They are sort of known rights and can come up and disappear at any moment. The rights of the individual are subsumed into the rights of the community. This is, in this case, the global community. Now, a good visual for thinking about the way this works is you take a clear glass of water, and that's your constitutional republic. And then you take another glass full of milk, that is your communitarian state. Communitarian state might be communist China. It's all for the common good. It might be Russia, communist Russia, or Nazis, all for the fatherland. Okay, so that's a communitarian state. Now you've got your constitutional republic, as we have here, in your communitarian state, and you want to balance them. So you take a clear pitcher, put it down here, and you're going to balance these two together. You're going to pour them together, the milk and the water. What do you have?
Milk.
You got milk. That's right. You got milk. You have lost your individual rights. They've been subsumed into the rights of the community. They come below the rights of the community. When you're balancing the community's rights with the individual's rights, the individual always loses. The community is like a brick and the individual like a feather. You always have more weight to the community. Okay, so this is what happens. When you're balancing them, you come up with your third way. You've got a problem, you've got a solution, and then you mix them together, and you get a third way. You get an agreement here that you never would have agreed to if this problem that suddenly came up didn't get posed. So you're going to see this again and again in your community, in your town, as an issue that comes up in the Bay Area. You're going to see this as you'll see a problem that is posed to you, and then the solution. And this happens regularly, and I'll show you how it works. So I am a liberal Democrat. I'm pro-choice. I am anti-war. I'm a feminist. I'm pro-gay marriage. And the thing that gets them to throw tomatoes at me when I'm traveling is I'm a native Californian. So I am a commercial real estate appraiser, and my specialty is eminent domain valuation. I've been a litigation support person, expert witness for many years. I'm just finishing up a 28-year career. And so I'm an expert in land use and property value. And because of that, I became aware that there was a planning revolution going on. And it seemed like nobody else was talking about it or noticing it. And that planning revolution is the way that we see Agenda 21. It's what it looks like to us. But I didn't know that. I was out there in 9 counties of the San Francisco Bay Area, and I was looking at property value, and I was trying to determine what people could do with their land, because that's what an appraiser does. You figure out what the highest and best use is, what somebody can use their property for, and then you calculate what it's worth, right? So I was going to planning departments all over the 9 counties, and I was saying, well, what can people do with their property? And I was finding out that there just wasn't a whole lot that they could do with their property. That in fact, the planning departments looked like they were there as the gatekeepers to stop people from using their property. And I was thrown out of plenty of planning departments. And proud of it too. I stood there and fought with planners regularly. And there were a few planners who said, I try to help people get around these regulations, these statutes, these ordinances, these rules that restrict them from using their property. And I said, is that what you do for a living? You try and help people get around the rules. So anyway, I'm a researcher, and if I have to prepare for a court case, I need to be able to support the facts, and that's what I do. I'm a researcher, and everything that I'm going to
real estate appraiser. She specializes, or did, I don't know if you still do, in eminent domain valuation. Do you still go out? Is still your job? And you've had a 28-year career as an expert witness on land use. This career culminated in exposing the impacts of sustainable development on private property and individual liberty. Rosa and her partner Kay Tokrud were instrumental in delaying a Santa Rosa redevelopment project that would have had an impact on 10,000 people who lived and worked in the projects, the area that they were going to take care of or redevelop. So tonight we're very pleased to have you here and welcome you, and I'm going to give you, will you have your own microphone now so you can take off.
Hope it's working.
And let me give you this if you want to use that.
Oh, good. Now, is this...
Can everybody welcome Rosa? It's getting feedback now.
All right, let's try that.
Okay, that sounds good.
Is that pretty good? Can everybody hear me really well?
I can't hear you.
Well, you should listen. I mean, come on.
I'm listening.
Do you listen carefully? That's good. So that was a good question about the occupiers. I thought that was a great question. The thing that we are having a problem with, obviously, in our country is that we've been divided. And we've been divided artificially. And this is part of the reason to divide us, because if we do get together, we're going to kick these guys out. And we're going to become aware very quickly of what's going on. So I want to introduce myself. I have been speaking across the United States to tea parties, to 912 groups, and to property rights groups. And, I've been speaking to the people who are the stewards of their land and their water. The property owners. The people who have their rights and are recognizing that they're losing their rights. Our rights. I'd be aware that what you're doing is enforcing United Nations Agenda 21 with a box of laws and ordinances and statutes that come right out of the agenda for the 21st century. So the days of conspiracy theory are over. The green mask is off, and behind it is Sustainable Development, United Nations Agenda 21. That's what it is. No matter how small the town is, no matter how remote you think you are, no matter how big your city or your town, United Nations Agenda 21, Sustainable Development, is having a powerful impact on you right now. Right now. So I'm here to help you identify it, recognize it, and label it for yourself. We're going to take it from the big picture right down to your living room, because if you can't identify it, if you can't recognize it, you're not going to be able to fight it. And awareness is the first step in the resistance. So I'm going to start with the overarching political philosophy that supports the whole concept of it, and that is communitarianism. Communitarianism says that the rights of the individual come below the rights of the community. Now, we're Americans, and we have our Constitution, which guarantees us our unalienable rights, right? Our rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which is, you leave me alone, and I'll leave you alone, and we'll be fine. And everyone is going to be, as long as I don't get in your way and you don't get in my way and nobody hurts anybody else, We have our individual rights, right? Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. Now, those are unalienable rights. They can't be taken away from us, and they can't be granted to us by a government, right? We were born with those rights. But communitarianism says that they have to be balanced with the rights of the community. Now, the rights of the community, what is that? We don't know what the rights of the community are. The rights of the community are given by, what I talk to you about is the truth. It's a fact, and it's supportable, and I have full documentation in my book and on my websites, and it's not a mystery. You can go to un.org and look at Agenda 21. It's, the thing is, I may be a liberal, but this is not a liberal, conservative, right, left issue. It's an American issue. This is an issue that all of us need to get on board with immediately, because we're in the end game on Agenda 21. It is the biggest public relations scam in the history of the world. And I know that sounds like some kind of, big Hollywood hype thing or something, but it's not. It's really the truth. This is the agenda for the 21st century. That's why it's called Agenda 21. It's not Area 51, it's not Catch 22. It's called by the United Nations the Agenda for the 21st Century, Agenda 21, Sustainable Development. It justifies and enables the breakdown of our economy, the redesign of our cities and our towns, our loss of industry and agriculture and food independence, basically our loss of sovereignty. It's social engineering. It's the glorification of the new poverty. And that's part of what you see with the Occupy movement, is that sense that everyone should have the same amount, that nobody should have too much, that no one actually earned $1 million, and that no one should be able to keep it, and that anyone who owns anything necessarily must have done something wrong to get it. That's the philosophy, that's sort of a base philosophy of Agenda 21. In fact, it's kind of not what is Agenda 21, it's what isn't. And you're going to have to look long and hard to find something that is not United Nations Agenda 21 now, because this has been in the works for a long time. And it doesn't come with flashing lights, and it doesn't come with labels on it. There are many, many names that it's known by. And even if you're on council, and even if you're in a county supervisor, you may not